So what can we learn about God from science? Well, I think lots, actually. And for example, I often think of Psalm 19, verse 1. The heavens declare the glory of the Lord. And if you're a Christian, you know God made the universe. But actually, being presented with a rich, deep vision of what the universe is like, that gives you an imaginative enrichment of this. So in other words, you know God made this, but actually it becomes even more real, even more exciting by having this amplification of what it means to think about the world.
There's one thing I don't think we can find out about God by looking at creation, and that is whether God exists or not. Because science, by definition, studies the physical universe, the physical world, and God is outside of that. But if we believe that God exists, and we believe that God made the world, then we can find out more about what God is like from what we see in nature. And I'm not sure exactly who first said it, but Francis Bacon used the analogy of two books that we can read about God in God's Word, for example in the Bible, but we can also read about God in the book of God's works, which is God's creation. And when I look at some of the things that I study in science, I never cease to be amazed at quite how impressive the world is and how impressive the mechanisms are, how things work, the intricacies and the variety, and yet the depth of simplicity at times of underlying physical laws and principles. It really is beautiful in many ways, and leads me to think about God. I'm not saying that I have any proof, but I'm saying that by looking at the world around me, it tells me more about God, and it leads me to worship God.
Every scientist experiences some sense of awe and wonder in their work, whether it's something mathematical, something very beautiful, something very surprising, something that just logically fits together so wonderfully. There's always that sense. And for Christian, there is also something that goes further, that their sense of awe and wonder can feed into their worship of God, the great creator who made it all. There's something extra, there's something that in their work sometimes that reminds them about something to do with the character and purposes of God. We're not talking about proof for God. It's more something that might resonate with their faith, as well as leading them to worship. It might make them think a little bit about the character and purposes of God.
I do see God reflected in his works in the sense of the amazing beauty that I experience in nature, but particularly in coral reefs. I think many people who don't know anything about coral reefs have an understanding that they're beautiful. And this is certainly something that we understand to be a reflection of the Creator. I find also this concept of many different creatures interacting together in complex ways to provide function and to provide sort of mutual sustenance for each other. I find this a beautiful illustration of sort of God's intent and provision and providence in creating a system that works together.
At its best, a natural theology is about truth and beauty and goodness. It's not just about making sense of the world. It's about an enhanced appreciation of its beauty, and as a result of that, a sense that this is pointing towards the still greater beauty of God. And for me, that's a very important thing to do. Science isn't very good at dealing with beauty, but theology is when it's done properly. And it gives us this framework for A, appreciating the beauty of nature, and B, seeing that beauty as a portal or a gateway through which we can catch a glimpse of the still greater beauty of God, which one day we're going to see face to face.